started.
All right, man. Justin Brown. What's going on, dude?
Everything, man. Everything's going great, Chet, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. How you doing with this whole virus thing so far?
Just being thankful that I have a routine. So that's kind of keeping me through, been steering the course for me, and just getting time to work on a lot of different projects and collab and do things such as we're doing right now. So just trying
Yeah,
to make the best use of the time, given the circumstances, and not get too caught up into too much news. Right? It's good to be informed, but at the same time, too much of it to start having you worried. So just trying to
right.
keep the balance and staying within that routine.
Yeah, I love that. And actually, we had I talked to Travis. You went to high school with him. He's a long time friend of yours. And we were talking about rituals, routines, and habits and things that he was doing, which was really cool. And we just got done talking for probably 30 minutes before we pressed record here about um, ideas and brainstorming and all these things for collaboration, which is awesome. But I know you've kind of got this uh, system, if you will, or this process that you work with student athletes and really just people in general who are trying to grow and progress. And it's dive, right? That's your acronym. What does that mean for you?
Yeah, so DIVE is really just a four-letter acronym, and the D stands for defining who you are, right? And outside of your sport, a lot of the times that I talk to athletes, it's defining who you are, even outside of being a student, right? Outside of being a student, outside of being an athlete, like who are you at your core, right? Your principles, your morals, your makeup outside of your identity in sports. And then the second one is investing. So investing into yourself academically first and foremost, physically, the blood, the sweat, and the tears that you're putting into your sport, and even emotionally, like even investing into yourself and like again going back to that define piece, understanding, what are the things you like to do away from the sport, what are the things that you like to do that are going to fill up that personal space, right? So just making sure you're investing into the process and then adding value, right? The V, adding value, so becoming a person of value, which all stems from back knowing who you are. And then once you understand, your strengths, your talents, and what makes you valuable to an organization, to a classroom, to a team, then you can use that same quality to shed and add value to others, right? So, if it's encouraging people, you can use that on the team, in the classroom, and in your community. So finding, those strengths, finding who you are, finding the value that creates, that makes you, and then spreading it in your community, right? Again, whether in the classroom, on the field or court, or in your community. So, and then the last one, the E, is just execute, right? Just, after you have all after you know who you are, you've been putting in the work, you're going out, you're spreading value, you're giving back. Now it just comes down to, how consistent can you be at that every single day? For how long can you do that? How long can you do follow that same process daily, in order to accomplish the goals or dreams that you're trying to accomplish. So that's the four. Those are the four acronyms, and that's pretty much the dive system. I created it out of my own story, background of coming out of Wilmington, Delaware, small state, small town, and having the dream of playing professionally, being fortunate enough to play for Penn State University, University of Oklahoma, and then being able to be fortunate enough to be drafted to the Steelers, play for the Bills. But during that time span, especially with the Steelers, I had to come through my own journey, right? Because I had made the mistake of, as I continued to, develop and continue to matriculate through different levels, I started to focus and define myself more and more as an athlete instead of as a person. So I wake up and
Which is probably so often the case,
yep,
right? It's somebody that gets to your level. Yeah.
yep. So, I wake up and now I'm, 22 years old. I'm going into my second year as a wide receiver for the Steelers, and I'm training with one of the best wide receivers in the business, right? Antonio Brown. So here I am, I'm training with a future Hall of Famer wide receiver, and we're getting done one of the hardest workouts that I've probably gone through. And we're at his house, eating a meal prepared by a chef. We're just hanging out before we go to the weight room. And he asked me, he was like, JB, like, who are you? And, I didn't, at first I was stunned. I'm like, okay, he asked me who I was. And I'm about to just say I'm a football player. So I fired back at him. I said, I'm a football player. And then he looks me in my eyes. He's like, no, you're not. He's like, you're more than that. And here it is. This is the best wide receiver in the business at the time, right? And he's telling me that I'm actually more than football. Mind you, the whole time I'm growing up, I'm just a football player. Here I am. I'm at the top of my profession, the top, with the best of the best. And now I'm being told that I'm more than actually that, right? So shortly after that, 3 season-ending injuries later, right? I never touched the NFL field again until now. I'm forced to have to answer that question myself daily, right? And the hardest part was the fact that I could no longer even say I was a football player. So, going through that, go through, so to speak, and I'm actually having a conversation with a local business owner at a restaurant that we still carry out to this day, like a mentor-mentee relationship. He was the one that challenged me, to really dive into my history and figure out what that process was that allowed me to, make it to the NFL. And then he told me to just reverse engineer, like apply that same process to whatever it is that I wanted to attack, in the second quarter of my life. And he was like, I promise you, you'll have more success in whatever you do in the second quarter of your life than you did in the first. And, standing here today, I'm not saying that I am, a multi-millionaire, right? And whatever I'm doing, but it's what I'm learning, right? Is me being able to go back and pull from some of the challenges and some of the success that I had in my, my last career, understanding the process, right? Really in depth and understanding that process, so that now when I'm, what I'm doing now when speaking and coaching, and writing, and doing different things, it's like I'm applying the same principles. Of course, I have to tweak a few things and make some adjustments because it's a different industry. But what I'm seeing now is even the relationships that I build, the experiences that I'm having, it's really the same process. Again, it's a few tweaks, a few adjustments, but it's the same process, that you apply that successful people continue to, create more success. So that's
yeah, it's so cool, and it's such an amazing story. And not just because you're from Delaware, there's so many pieces to it. And what I was going to say is that this program that you've created and that you are creating and that you're cultivating doesn't come from somebody that hasn't not been through it. It's not something that just kind of develops out of thin air. It's something that you've lived and you've breathed and you've gone through those experiences that now you're able to kind of shape and mold into a process to help share with other people. And that's what's so cool is that that's what you figured out as your platform. Like that's because it's not for everybody. Some people are able to just go through it and then they do their thing, and that's cool. There's nothing wrong with that. And this is what you figured out. It seems like that's kind of like it comes out of you. This is just what pours out of you, and where you feel that you are put on this platform to do and to provide, which is so cool. It's so cool to see. And so you've got this program and you work with student athletes. What's your, I know you went through what each word or what each letter means, but what's your mission? Like, what is it that you're trying to provide to the people that you work with?
So I'm trying to provide just awareness, right? Awareness for student athletes and coaches even, to understand that they're more than what people expect out of them. That right, you're more than what you provide in your cleats or your sneaks, right? So you're more than being a basketball player. You're more than being lacrosse or field hockey or what. You're really more than that. So it's just making them aware of that, because when you tell a kid that's been playing sports since they were 5 years old and they're 18 years old, and when you tell them that they're more than an athlete, when they've accepted that athletic identity, that's a shock, right? They're not going to really be accepting to that at first if that's not already being cultivated at home or by somebody else. So what it is just really breaking them down and asking those questions, right? Like, what is your why, right? Like, what is your why? Who are you, right? Like, why are you trying to accomplish going to college? Like, is it for you? Is it for someone else? Really just asking those questions, because what I'm finding out a lot of times is athletes, we have goals, right? But sometimes our goals are not even necessarily for us. And what creates stress is when you start to realize, even though you're excelling and you're using your talents to accomplish those goals and get the celebrity, get the all American, all conference, all state type of status, and you get the scholarships, then when you get it and you realize that I was doing it for somebody else. right? Or you realize that, I'm not necessarily into the sport like I thought I was, but because I was, doing it for my parents, I was doing it for the recognition, I was doing it for a lot of the different, reasons that don't even come back to, my core, right? So I think that that's the main thing, is the main thing is just
Yeah.
trying to create that awareness, man, because you see it, Chet, you were an athlete, and we, we still stay involved in athletics. So you hear the stories of people that, we played with or that we've heard about growing up, and, they played, whether it's NBA or NFL, it's like they play all these years, make a lot of money, and then they're out on the street, right? Or now they're going through a lot of different legal problems, or they're going through a lot of different challenges. And I believe that part of it is because they didn't necessarily understand who they were outside of, lacing up cleats and lacing up sneaks. So making athletes and coaches aware of that so that they don't necessarily have to go through the depression, right? The anxiety, right? The uncertainty. And then even if they do have to go through some of these emotions, they're going to be able to go through at a better state than than what some of the athletes that are unaware, right? Like myself. So I think going back into that whole mission, it's just like I see myself just trying to help people again, just understand who they are, just so they don't have to go through, that time period of what I had to go through when it's just like I literally didn't know what I was going to do. Right. So I want to at least allow you to understand. You might not know what you want to do, but you know exactly what your talents are outside of your sport, to where whatever it is you want to do, you know exactly what position would suit you best. You know what environment would suit you best. You know how you like to be communicated to and how you like to communicate, so that when you do make that transition into that next career move, it's going to be the best transition. It's going to be a lot smoother than how it would be if you necessarily were counting all your eggs in one basket and you're not necessarily taking the time to find out about yourself. And then you have to make that transition, and you're unaware of everything, right? So that's what I believe the mission is.
It's so cool. It's such a great process to really dive in, to learn about yourself, look internally, and how you react to things, and how the way you are affects other people and influences other people, and it's such great work. And I think everybody at some point hits this. At some point, everybody hits this scenario where they need to do this type of process. They need to do this type of work. Some people earlier than others, and it's fun. It provides a fulfillment almost. It provides this experience of learning and growing and gaining knowledge. At the same time, it can get heavy. At the same time, it can get it can get, I won't say discouraging, but it can get just heavy. You can feel pressure that you're doing all this work. So have you felt any of that in this process of experiencing it yourself, also creating this process to share with others? Surely it brings you joy because it's what you do, but I'm sure it also at times there's this pressure of, man, what can I do for joy? So what are some things that you do for joy outside of this process and helping people?
Well, one of the things I love to read, so that's one of the things that allows me to get away, just get some time and just to learn, something new. Of course, still staying active. That's what gives me joy. Still being able to get that pump, get that blood flowing. Spending time with family. I make sure that I select at least, if it's on the weekends, if I do 2 half-a-days, or if it's just one day, just to spend time with family, get away from, the program, get away from athletics, get away from sports, just so I can center myself, right? So, and I believe that, you always need to have, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly, just certain things to do so that you can get away from, the mundane things, the things that you have to do in the process of life, right? Your hectic schedule, the job, the responsibilities. You have to really set time throughout the day, week, month, year, right, to really get away, to recharge, because, especially in what we do, we're always, we're going out, we're having classes, we're coaching, we're training, we're trying to pour a lot into, into people, right? Pour a lot into student athletes or into people. And sometimes what I've learned and what I've seen and heard is that when you do a lot of time pouring into people, sometimes your cup gets empty, right? So you have to make sure that you can, refill, and whether that is reading, whether that's working out, whether that's, as far as what you're doing spiritually. I always make sure that I'm doing something to continue to refill and recenter myself. I'm always listening to a lot of great speakers. I'm always listening to a lot of great coaches. A lot of, just even great players and interviews, it's like what we're doing just to get those different type of signals going in my brain. And, kind of that just recenters and refocuses me to make sure I
Yeah,
don't tap.
man, I couldn't agree more. And I think, like, to be honest, I think that's one of the things that I sometimes struggle with is I take in like all these awesome people and listening to people and reading things and all this information. I'm like, man, that's so awesome. And then like my first instinct is to go teach that, is
Right.
to go share that, is to go give that to someone else when I'm not filling my own cup up, like you said, right? Is absorb that information, look at myself first, take that those knowledge bombs in
Mhm.
and fill my cup up, and give the excess to others. But yeah, man, that's like my first instinct is to always just take it and then go and
Dish it out.
like teach it or implement it into the quarterback sessions that I do or whatever else that I'm doing.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, so that's something that I for sure can relate to of emptying my own cup out before
Because
it's
it's
full.
easy too, though. It's easy because it's like you wake up, you have everything planned, or at least for me, like I wake up, I have everything planned that I want to get done, right? I have my
Yeah.
time select, slotted out to work out, read, do things, study. But then, just like every day, all these different things start happening. You have people that switch schedules, and it's just like, okay, now your day gets so busy, right? And certain things that you might have set out for that day, week, right, you never get to. And so you plan to have a day, you plan to end the day at 9 o'clock, right? Or 9:30, 10 o'clock and have 30 minutes to just wind down. But now that got pushed back because your schedule's off, right? So it's just making sure that you're just conscious, like, okay, if I miss this at the end of my day, I need to make sure that I spend maybe an extra 30 minutes tomorrow morning, right? So I can at least be able to refill myself because, you know, you might be able to get by 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. But as far as if you're pouring out a lot of information, you're doing a lot of different things, you have to make sure that you're still, you're still filling that back into yourself, even as being like a parent, even as being a teacher, right? In whatever profession you're doing, you're always in a situation to where you're either giving or receiving information, right? Like Coach Tomlin, he would always say that. He would say, we're in the business of, continually giving and receiving information. So it's just like as much as you're continuing to give, you have to keep receiving, right? You have to make sure that you're slotting that time out because if not, you're gonna, burnout is real in each and every single industry and in life, right? So if you're not doing these things to, gauge yourself and to, pace yourself, you're gonna burn out eventually, and nobody likes
Yeah.
being burnt out.
No, man, no doubt. And that's huge. That's such a great line. We're in the business of giving and receiving information. And that's I'm sure with Coach Tomlin, he's not just talking about the NFL. He talked
He's
about
right.
life.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what he did, man. That's why I like, especially being around, a guy like Coach Tomlin, gave you a lot of life lessons, man. I mean, he
Mm.
understood the importance of, yeah, this is a game, we get paid a lot for it, and it brings us a lot of joy. But he always made it a point to bring a lesson, into that meeting room, whether it was on his way over to the job, whether it was something he heard or something he saw in the locker room. He would always try to find something small, like something that you wouldn't even think of, and he would make it an entire speech, and then that would like last. It would literally just stick to us like to this day. So, and that's another
That's
thing, just
awesome.
trying to find different ways in life, especially during this time, right? Just
Yeah.
finding different ways throughout your day. I just find myself in the morning, like I'm up early. You see the sunrise, and you're just like, man, thank God. You know what I mean? I get to see the sunrise today. You know what I mean? Somebody didn't get to see it. You know what I mean? So just having
Yeah.
those small different moments of like perspective and having gratitude, and again, just being able to refuel yourself. It's important, especially in the game that we're playing in this journey in life.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And like you just said, especially in this crazy moment that we're in right now with all this stuff. I tell you, it's pretty wild to go out to the store and see people with gloves and masks on and things like that, and it makes it really real.
Yeah.
So what would you say is with your stance and your mindset in the process and in the the dive system that you're creating? What would you say to someone that's kind of struggling with this current moment, just in life, that's struggling with the whole virus thing right now? Like, what would be your word of wisdom to keep them going forward?
Well, I would just try to find the opportunity, right? And I'm sensitive to say that because especially when you're dealing with people, families are being affected, lives are being lost, sickness, and there's a lot of turmoil, jobs. But in every, and I just heard someone say this yesterday, like in every, and I'm a history buff, but in history, in every time of uncertainty or despair or, you know, economy, a shift or, civilization crash or something, there was always opportunity that stemmed out of it, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
when you talk about like even in our economy, in our country, there were, and when the last crash that took place in 2008, 2009, there were still businesses that, did well off of that, right? So, and for athletes, it's just like a lot of uncertainty. You don't know, if you're going to be able to finish out your season. You don't know if you're going to be able to play next year. You don't know a lot of things, right? Recruiting is pretty much out the window, put on pause now. You got kids that were on the, on the borderline for, being able to graduate and able to, you know, earn a scholarship, and now that everything's up in the air. So, but there's still an opportunity, and I'm telling my guys and my, my girls and, the athletes and coaches I'm consulting is, this is a time to now you get to figure out a little more about yourself, right?
Yeah.
Now you get to think about, okay, why am I so anxious? It's because I can't control, my future. Okay, well, what can I control? I can still control the work that I put in. I can still control my mindset. I can still control the people that I can talk to and talk through what we're going through, right? Like we can do this, we can have Zoom calls. So, and then even if you want to go deeper, it's like, okay, now I get to think about how do I apply myself? Like, okay, I was struggling academically, but on the court, on the field, I excel. So what is maybe a way that I could take some of the ways that I excel on the court or the field? Maybe it's the way that I communicate, or maybe it's the fact that I always have, a great support system, or it's the fact that, I have a great process for how I approach things on the field. Like, what can I take on the field that's allowing me to have a lot of success? How can I now convert that and focus that on my academics right now during this time? Because
Right.
I think a lot of times, we don't have enough time to really process these things out, right? We don't have enough time to think about, how we apply ourselves in school, and then how we apply ourselves on the field or court, how we apply ourselves with our friends, right? But now, since we have a lot of time, you know, you can address those things even with your family, right?
Yeah,
Like,
no doubt.
I know people with families, some people with their kids are just like, oh my gosh, right? Because you didn't take a lot of the time to, you know, follow up with them daily, right? And for whatever excuse, there's a lot of different things going on, a lot of different responsibilities. But
Yeah.
I think the fact that we have so much time now, you can really start to point out, the uh, different challenges that you had, right? Some of the different successes that you had, and then really be able to track out, okay, how am I going to be? Because there's going to be a different normal from here going out. But you can start to put in that place to say, okay, in my new normal, this is now, this is the things that I'm going to attack personally,
Yeah.
on the field, on the court, academically, right, spiritually. Like, these are the different things that I'm going to attack because I have enough time to develop a plan to be able to carry things out on the back end of this.
Yeah, that's huge. And what you just said, there's going to be a new normal. It's just that's fact. There's going to be a new normal. And we talked about this in my Mayhem Mindset group the other night was uh, something about like change, right? There's going to be change in all this, but using the word change means that you can go back. Instead, we used the word transformation, and
Mm,
transformation is something that is, almost miracle.
right.
Is almost a spiritual word to it. Which definitely a new normal means you have this time to now make a transformation in whatever it is that you want to do. And you talking about athletes looking internally, looking at their strengths and weaknesses is so great. And one of the things I've talked to our quarterbacks about is that like this whole scenario has leveled the playing field,
Mm,
right? So like if you were the backup quarterback last year or the backup receiver or whoever last year, hey, guess what? The guy who was ahead of you has to stay at home right now too.
yep.
He can't go to the gym. He can't, so it's leveled the playing field. And now the question is what are you going to do about it?
What are you going to
What
do?
are you going to do with it? What does this situation make possible?
Yeah.
Um, and it's not easy. It's not easy to think that
And
way.
we didn't have to go through this. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
why I always keep telling myself, like, I can't. You have to be conscious, right, to not say I understand what you're going through, because I don't.
Right.
Like, I understand losing, injuries and stuff like that. I understand those type of things. I don't know how it is to be, one day you wake up, you have an opportunity to go play football next year at a different school, go D1, do this, and then you wake up one day and it's like you can't even finish out school. There's no more prom. there is no senior week, there's no graduation, and you don't even know if your school is even going to have school next year. Like, you don't even know if your college is going to be open. So I don't know what that feels like, but I know how I know how you can control those certain situations within that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I can give you advice on. So, that's going to help you feel a lot better than how you do right now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, uh, there's so many cool conversations that we've already had, and I'm so excited and looking forward to the ones that we're gonna have, and hopefully some collaborations and some football stuff that we're gonna do. But for anybody that checks this out on YouTube or Spotify, what's your website? Where can people find you on social and all that?
Absolutely. So my website is at justinbrownvs.com. For social media, for Instagram, it's justinbrown_vs.com. And for Facebook, it's Justin Brown. Twitter, same thing, justinbrown_vs.com. _vs for Twitter for sure.
Yeah.
Those are the handles. LinkedIn, Justin Brown. But those are all my handles so far.
Love it, man. Yeah, and I love the consistency that you have on Instagram, dude. It's just pumping out the videos that has to do with your process, pumping out the information. It's so great. So yeah, anybody that wants to learn more about this dive process, just go follow Justin on Instagram. It's daily information, daily detail, and then hit him up. He's always open to talk, and he's got this great. He uses this great resource called the Disc Index to kind of help you figure out things that go on within you. And he's a great person to talk about it. So hit him up. And Justin, appreciate you, man.
No doubt, Chet. Appreciate you having me, man. Look forward to doing this again.
All right, talk soon.
All right, man. Take it easy.